भट जुग श्री जीवा प्रभु लोकनाथ दया करो श्री आचार्य प्रभु श्रीनिवास रामचंद्र संग मागे नरोत्तम दास श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु दया करो मोरे तुम बिना की दयालु जगत संसारे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Kalachandji Radha Kalachandji Radhe. Jaya Radha Govind Radha Govind Radhe. Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Nityananda Ram, Jaya Nityananda Ram, Jaya Nityananda Ram, Jaya Nityananda Ram. Jaya Nityananda Ram, Jaya Nityananda Ram, Nityananda Ram, Jaya Nityananda Ram. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Gurudev. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Purvikacharya Astatarasata Shishimad. His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Purvikacharya Astatarasata Shishimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Shaimakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dhama Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Yuga Dharma Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki jai, Sri Nityananda Trayodasi ki jai, Nityananda Mahajana ki jai, Sri Nityananda Rama ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you all so much for being here. Shri Nityananda Rama Ki Jai. So shortly we will have class by His Grace Rupanuga Prabhu. Let's give him a big Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Very grateful to Rupanuga Prabhu for giving class today. I think everybody knows, but Rupanuga Prabhu has been in this community since the late 70s, along with Mother Jayanti. And they've served in so many different capacities, and a big part of us having a Gurukul here in Dallas is due to their efforts for many years. I was a fortunate attendee of that Gurukul, and they've served in many other ways. So very grateful to you, Rupanuga Prabhu, for coming today and giving class. Thank you so much. Yes. So just to cover the schedule for the remainder of today, so now we'll have class until probably about 8:50 or so. And then after class at 9 o'clock, we'll start with Kirtan. At 10 a.m., we'll have Abhishek, and Kirtan will continue. At 10:30 a.m., we'll have a nice presentation by the TKG Academy lower elementary students. And at 11 a.m., we'll have another class on Sri Nityananda Prabhu by Her Grace Arudha Mataji. She's the mother of Radhika Raman and Gopal Hari Prabhus, and a very wonderful devotee and disciple of Srila Prabhupada. So that class will be at 11 o'clock, and then at 12 o'clock we'll have Raj Bhog Artik and Kirtan, and then at 1 o'clock we'll have a sumptuous Prasadam feast. So please come for as much as you can, and if you have any time, we need a little help with the cleanup afterwards. So if all of us come together, many hands make light work, and it'll be quite fun. So thank you so much for being here. Shri Nityananda Rama Ki Jai. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. I wasn't expecting so many people here today. Otherwise, I might have ducked out. Do we have cartos? Not that pair. Thank you so much. There might be some who don't know me so well. My name is Rupanuga Das, and I'm disciple of His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, grand disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you. Garlands might be considered honorariums. I consider them kind of necessary props. They help me to speak. our technology person here. Temple presence had to function in a lot of ways, some of which are planned for. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Nitai Gaura Premananda. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajaka Charja Hasto Tarasata Sri Shimad. His divine loving grace of Hoya Charanadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajaka Charja Hasto Tarasata Sri Shimad. His divine grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavarinda Ki, ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON Guru Parampara Ki, Sri Rup Sri Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Sri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki, Premjako Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktarinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhana Ki Shri Vrindavandam Ki Shri Mathuradam Ki Shri Mayapur Navaduit Dham Ki Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Shri Shri Radha Kalachandidam Ki Ganga Devi Ki, Jamuna Mai Ki, Tulsi Devi Ki, Bhakti Devi Ki, Samavira Bhakta Vrinda Ki, Briyat Madanga Transcendental Book and Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki, Nitai Gaura Premananda, Hari Hari Bol, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Namo Vishnavadaya Krishna Vistaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurabhade Bacharine Nivishesha Shunyavade Vishtade Shitarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Say with me. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottama Devim Saraswatim Yasan Tirojayam Udirayat Nasta Preshavadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Today is one of those days when the speaker gets to decide what text he's going to be speaking from. So I've chosen today, if you have your phones with you and would like to dial in, I'm going to be speaking from Bhagavad Gita, 13th chapter, 21st verse. Incidentally, I will recognize that today is our celebration of the appearance day of Lord Sri Nityananda Ram. And we've had two classes recently, day before yesterday, a class that was given by Mother Anuradha Devidasi. And yesterday, the Sunday class was also about Lord Nityananda and his pastimes. So I've chosen not to speak about Lord Nityananda and his pastimes. If you have a strong interest, and I hope you do, that today you will go to Chaitanya Charitamrita and read a bit about Lord Sri Nityananda's pastimes. Today I'm going to be speaking about a topic which is current, and that is suffering. Someone quoted, I think they quoted some time ago in a class, a question that was asked to Srimati Radharani. And the question was, and I've tried to find this and I have not been able to find it, so I won't be able to give you the reference that it came from. But the question was, what is the most valuable thing in this material world? And you might think Srimati Radharani would say, chanting the holy names, worshiping Lord Krishna. But she said, suffering is the most valuable thing. So we're going to take a look at suffering here. And it seems to be one of the topics that devotees talk about a lot, about how bad the material world is, and therefore everybody should take to chanting the holy names of the Lord to get some respite from the problems that we're having in our daily lives. Some of you might have heard recently about the school districts, entire school districts in Texas that are closed down because of a rampage of disease that has struck the children and struck the instructors, their teachers and their staff members. My older daughter, Garangalila, happens to work at one of our Dallas school districts, one of the schools, and her two boys have been out. Her husband has been down. She herself has been attacked by this. And some of you probably know someone who has suffered some kind of pretty severe sickness, something that kept them down for a few days. And so I want to ask the question, or pursue the question, which is suffering more characterized by? Is it punitive or is it beneficial? Or is it both? So let's read from chapter 13, text 21. If you can read along with me as I read. We won't do word for word and that sort of thing, recitation during this class. Karya karana kartuitre hetu. No, we won't repeat. Hetu prakritir uchate Purusha Sukha Dukhanam Bhoktritve Hetur Uchate. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. The living entity, that means us. I'm going to read the entire purport here of Srila Prabhupada. So please bear with me. The different manifestations of body and senses among the living entities are due to material nature. There are how many different species of life? 8,400,000, 8.4 million different species of life. How many of those are human beings? 400,000. So 8,400,000. So besides us in the human form of life, 8 million other species in which we could have taken birth, and as a matter of fact, probably have taken birth at some time in the past. And these varieties of the creations of material nature, they arise from the different sensual pleasures of the living entity, who thus desires to have this body or that. When he is put into different bodies, he enjoys different kinds of happiness and distress. These are all Prabhupada's words here, and we understand that Krishna was dictating to Srila Prabhupada. His material happiness and distress are due to his body and not to himself, as he is. In his original state, there is no doubt of enjoyment. Therefore, that is his real state. Because of the desire to lord it over material nature, he is in the material world. So somehow or other, we found ourselves here in this material world with a material body. The spiritual world, in the spiritual world, there's no such thing. The spiritual world is pure. But in the material world, everyone is struggling hard to acquire different kinds of pleasures for the body. It might be more clear to state that this body is the effect of the senses. The senses are instruments for gratifying desires. Now, the sum total, body and instrument senses, that's an interesting term to use here, is offered by material nature, and as will be clear in the next verse, the living entity is blessed or damned with circumstances according to his past desire and activity. According to one's desires and activities, material nature places one in various residential quarters. The being himself is the cause of his attaining such residential quarters and his attendant enjoyment or suffering. In other words, we're the ones to blame. Or we're the ones to say we are the cause of our suffering or our enjoyment. Once placed in some particular kind of body, he comes under the control of nature because the body, being matter, acts according to the laws of nature. At that time, the living entity has no power to change the law. Suppose an entity is put into the body of a dog. As soon as he is put into the body of a dog, he must act like a dog. As soon as he is put into he cannot act otherwise. And if the living entity is put into the body of a hog, then he is forced to eat stool and act as a hog. Not a pleasant thing from our perspective, but from a hog's perspective, quite nice, actually. Similarly, if the living entity is put into the body of a demigod, he must act according to this kind of body. This is the law of nature. But in all circumstances, the supersoul is the individual's. The supersoul is with the individual soul. That is explained in the Vedas, Mundaka Upanishad, as follows. Dwasuparna Sayuja Sakhaya. The Supreme Lord is so kind upon the living entity that he always accompanies the individual soul and in all circumstances is present as the supersoul of the Paramatma. So we might think in the body of a demigod, the Lord is with the demigod, then that's not really such a bad place to be. But what about the hog? And yet Krishna agrees to come into this material world, even in the body of a hog, to give direction and to witness the activities of the living entity, which is us. We are. So we're interested in discussing whether suffering is punitive or beneficial. Some people say, nah, punishment, no benefit, none at all. It's simply making me feel really bad for a period of time. So what is exactly the cause of suffering? One is the desire for pleasure in the material world. So for some reason we become attracted to enter this material world, and when we do, then we're given a body which is commensurate with our desires, our material desires. And because we've been here before and we've had different kinds of body, we still might be carrying over into our human birth some of the reactions that put us in our previous birth. And so in any kind of body that we choose to enter in, or that we're given to enter in this material world, we look for one thing in particular, and that is pleasure. I want to have some fun. Give me a body, Lord, that I can have some fun in this material world. So we might be speaking like that. If you're from the rural South, that would be the way you'd be saying it too, probably. I grew up in rural Mississippi, so I know the way to speak, coming from the country. Being ignorant of our reactions is another cause then of our suffering. We desire to act in a certain way. We desire to have certain benefits within this material world. And not knowing the reactions that come with trying to get those facilities, then we have to suffer. We also, in our struggle to enjoy, are likely to cause suffering to other living entities along the way. Certainly in the human form, and probably in lower forms of life, we're causing other living entities, especially those who grew up like I did, and that is in a family and as a society of meat eaters. There are all kinds of living entities that have to suffer tremendously in order to provide some delicious-looking, palatable dish on our tables. And so because we take this as part of our enjoyment, and you know, a lot of people in our society, if you mention to them the fact that, hey, I've been a vegetarian for a year now, they will say, I don't see how you do it. It can't be done. I can't live without having some kind of meat with my meal. Did you know that there are people like that out there? There sure are. We came from that kind of society, so we know, we've experienced that. And so we try to help them understand that if you really want to enjoy, then you're going to keep your body as fit as possible. And that means consuming the right kinds of foodstuffs. So causing others to suffer is another one of our reasons for having to suffer ourselves. And there's no other reason that we have to suffer other than what we have done in the past, even though someone else might be causing us to suffer. And I can't help thinking about the people in Ukraine and suffering that they're having to, and not only Ukraine, but people all over the world, they're having to suffer just piteously because, and what do they think is the reason? The aggressor. The country that has come into their country trying to take over the control of the country. And so that's the reason that each one of those persons who is having to suffer as a Ukrainian person, they just simply do not understand the real cause of their suffering, their individual suffering. Because even in the presence of an aggressor like that, there are going to be some people in the society that whose position for enjoyment is enhanced. They're going to have more enjoyment during that person's dictatorship, or now that we've got a new president in the United States, the person's service in that position. There's some people that are going to suffer, and there's some people that are going to enjoy. And who are they going to blame it on if they're suffering? Their next door neighbor plays the music too loud, leaves trash all out in the yard, that kind of stuff. Or the governor of our state, you know, he's just making laws. He's trying to keep all these poor people out of this country. He's helping to build a wall down here in South Texas to keep people who are really suffering, that need a place to come to, carry on decent, honorable lives, keep them out. And both have good reasons. You know, the people that want that wall up there and the people who don't want the wall there, they both have very good logical arguments to present. So in some way or another, we are wanting to blame others on our problems, the difficulties that we're having. And so we say, well, they're the cause. Even our families say about our children. We have young children at home, and they go to school, and the kids come home sick. Guess who's to blame for the sickness? All those other kids running around in school who are sick, making my kids sick. You know, they don't accept it as something that my child is just going to have to go through, because this is part of his reactions from his previous lifetimes. So it's a great deal of ignorance out there that causes us mental suffering, and if not physical suffering, to go with it. So sometimes, even though we do have the knowledge, that we act in spite of knowing that there are going to be reactions. And this, I think, was a question that Arjuna posed to Lord Krishna when he was reciting the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna just before the great battle of Kurukshetra was about to take place. He said, how is it that we're forced to act in a certain way even though we don't really want to? And Krishna explains it's a lust only. Lust meaning it's our desire to enjoy everything and everybody around us. So what are the results of that suffering? Well, one possible good result is that we get rid of reactions that we brought with us from previous lifetime. As a matter of fact, when Parikshit Maharaj was seated on the riverbank with all kinds of saintly persons around him, and Shukadeva Goswami comes up and sits down, this young boy who is completely unclothed and does not recognize the fact that he's without clothes, and he's amidst all of these honorable people here, including his own father, and yet he's the one for whom the top seat or the highest seat is prepared and given. And just as he was telling Parikshit Maharaj, you can prepare for your death, which is going to come in 7 days, according to the curse. You can prepare for your death by getting rid of your reactions, and that is, you can do that by simply offering penance, or offering something to counteract those reactions. But Parikshit Maharaj is very intelligent, and even though he has spent his entire life in a kingly society with all of his desires fulfilled, still he knows that simply being sorry for your reactions and offering some kind of penance for those activities that you've committed before is not enough, because even if you get free of those reactions, you're still going to go back and act in the same way until your something happens to your consciousness. So he rejects that first offering of Shukadeva Goswami and says, no, it might get rid of some reactions, but then what about when I come back? It's like the elephant going into the river taking a bath, and when he comes out of the river all nice and clean, he uses his trunk to blow dust all over his body, dirt all over his body. So, in other words, people will do that. They'll perform the activities to clean their consciousness, but then they'll come back and perform the same activities. Why? Because they want pleasure. We want to be happy. And we can't understand, most of us, if we have not been introduced to the teachings of Srila Prabhupada and the Vedas, we can't understand the reason that we're having to suffer. So most people in our society are ignorant of those causes of our suffering. So even among the great personalities in society, we have so many incidents shown or given in the Mahabharata, for example, the great history of India, of the world for that matter. And so if we simply spend time reading the Srimad Bhagavatam and reading the Mahabharata and similar literatures, we're going to see that there are great personalities. I give the example that comes to mind is Draupadi, Queen Draupadi, who was the queen, the wife, the common wife of 5 very godly young men, and so at one time the Pandavas were. They had enjoyed an early life, first of all, in the mountains where their father Pandu had taken them to live, and somewhere close to the hermitages of very saintly persons. So the boys, those 5 boys, grew up in the mountains along with their mothers, their 2 mothers, Madri and Kunti, and their father Pandu. And they had a wonderful life in the beginning, but then, as always happens, it seems, in this material world, things go to hell. And so Pandu suffered the reactions of a curse that he had been given previously, and he gave up his body untimely. This is all described in detail in the Mahabharata. And so because they lost their father, the Pandavas, the 5 Pandava boys, were taken with their mother. Of course, Madri, she entered the funeral pyre with Pandu, and so she gave up her body. But then Kunti was left to raise the 5 boys. So she was advised by the saintly persons around them to go to Hastinapur, where their relatives were, and where the brother of Pandu, Dhritarashtra, the blind king, had taken charge, because he was asked to take charge by Pandu. He's given that responsibility. But now Dhritarashtra is wanting his own sons to inherit the kingdom instead of his brother's sons, who were the actual heirs of the king. And so because of that, then as soon practically as they got to Hastinapur, they began to experience the rivalry with their cousins, the Yadavas, and so because of the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra headed by Duryodhana were inimical toward their cousins, they gave them a very difficult time, and so they were practically denied a kingdom to reign over. So it was suggested to Dhritarashtra that he divide his kingdom into 2 parts, give half the kingdom to the Pandavas, half of it to his sons. And so we know that from the description that was given, Dhritarashtra was not exactly the most fair and providing for his nephews. the Pandavas. So he gave them a piece of land, and then the Pandavas went to look at this land, and with them was Lord Krishna, their friend. And Lord Krishna said, just see how kind your uncle has been to give you this. It was a horrible piece of land. It was desert-like, and it was practically a piece of land that had been cursed. So that's a land that they had been given to rule over. But Krishna was with them, and Krishna's got connections. So he calls for a demigod. Who did he call for it? Vishwakarma to prepare them. And who did he call for to change the environment? Anybody remember? Indra, King Indra, said, please shower rain over all this and make it a beautiful place. And so he did. And then they had the architect of the demigods come and plan all the buildings that they had there. And so the Pandavas were set up. It was a very beautiful place. It rivaled Hastinapur in opulence if it did not exceed it. And of course, Dhritarashtra's sons had to come and take a look and see what kind of kingdom their unfortunate cousins were having to rule over. And so when he saw this, he became very envious also. And he also experienced one occasion where the palace was so planned that a place that looked like land looked like the floor was actually water. And so he stepped off into this and got wet, and all the queens, all the women of the kingdom were laughing at them. And Yudhisthira, being the kind person he is, started to stop them from laughing. But Krishna slyly told Yudhisthira, no, let them laugh. Because he was actually, I think, interested. He knows what the plan is, Krishna does. And so Duryodhana went back to his kingdom and was always trying to think of a way to excel the efforts of the Pandavas. And so he asked his father to have them arrange for a gambling match. And so you know about that. He had his uncle. Who was his uncle? Does anybody remember? Shakuni? Shakuni was very expert at cheating and gambling, throwing dice. And so when the Pandavas came up, and they had to accept the challenge because they're Kshatriyas. And Kshatriyas have to accept whatever challenge is given to them. When they came, then they lost. Every time the dice was thrown, they lost. And so Yudhisthira, then he lost his wealth. He lost his kingdom. He even lost his brothers. He lost himself. And then finally, he lost his wife, Draupadi. And so he had nothing else to lose. So they wanted to drag Draupadi out and disrobe her and embarrass her, shame her in front of all of these persons who were leaders of the society. You know, Bhishma, Dronacharya, so many people that were there. And they brought her out and tried to disrobe her, and nobody spoke to try to help her. Even her 5 husbands were not able to act in that case, even though Bhimasena, who was the strongest and biggest of all of the 5 Pandavas, he wanted to immediately kill those persons. He was not permitted to by Yudhisthira. Yudhisthira said, no, this is not the time. And so the Pandavas then lost everything, but then, at the end, when Draupadi finally raised her hands up into the air and said, Hey Govinda, Hey Gopal, then Krishna came and supplied her an unlimited length of sari, which as it was being pulled off of her was just piling up on the floor. And just a huge pile of saris were there, and still she was not disrobed. So Krishna came at that time unseen and helped her by giving her an unlimited length of sari to keep from being so much embarrassed. But now, sometimes suffering brings good results. And it was because of Draupadi's being defamed and being dishonored, the Battle of Kurukshetra took place. And all of Dhritarashtra's 100 sons were killed in that battle. Not only they were killed, but something like, how many others? 6 million other people. Anybody remember the number of human beings that were killed in the Battle of Kurukshetra? Anyhow, millions. And even over an 18-day span, this happened. So what happened as a result of that, all of that suffering? The rightful owners of the kingdom, of the world practically, were put back into the place that they should have been first of all. Yudhishthira became the emperor of the world. And all of these others had to suffer because of their desires for happiness and pleasure and prestige and honor in this material world. They had to suffer. So Bhima then, at some point in time, before they had the big war, Bhima was poisoned. You remember that? They decided to go out for an outing, and so Dhritarashtra's evil son wanted to kill Bhima because he was the strongest of all of them. And so they infused a cake and had it specially for him. And so he ate this cake, and he became very sleepy toward the end of the day. And so when the others had left, then Duryodhana and his brothers chained him up, threw him into the river, and went back home to the castle, to their Hastinapur. And so as a result of that, Bhima was attacked by snakes under the water, and snakes. There was a Naga kingdom down there, and there were snakes, and they attacked him with poison. The venom actually had the effect of neutralizing the poison in the cake. Wonder whose arrangement that was. And so Bhima was also given some nectar to increase his strength, and so the inhabitants of that kingdom under the water were surprised to see him consume so much of that nectar that was given to him. And so because of that, he became just indefatigable, means he could not be tired, and undefeatable. He could not be defeated in battle. Bhima. So these things are happening because of the suffering. I mean, they're happening to great personalities, even though we understand that they had no karma. They were godly people. Draupadi was godly. All the Pandava brothers were very godly. And so all the suffering that they had to go through, they just accepted. But eventually, Krishna made arrangements that they would be vindicated. They had done nothing wrong, and they would be placed back in the position, even though they had been wandering in the wilderness, in the forest, for so many years, 14 years, they had been wandering in the forest as a result of the second dice game that Duryodhana brought on them. And so Narada Muni is another personality who had to suffer taking birth in a very low-class person, a woman, because of something that he had done in the past. But in this life, he was the son of a maidservant, and during the rainy seasons, there were saintly persons who came to that ashram where they were staying, and they were being served by Narada's mother. And once upon a time, one time, he asked permission to take the remnants of foodstuffs from those saintly persons, and they permitted it. And so because of that, whatever reactions that he had in the past were certainly dissipated, and he gained a huge, enormous spiritual status. So because of his having to suffer that discomfort, that the defamation actually too, of being born into that kind of family, he was given the opportunity to become the Devadeva, the demigod of the demigods. That was an ornament. So whatever suffering he had to go through then was mitigated by the presence of those saintly persons that allowed him one time to take remnants of their foodstuffs. And of course, he got to hear all of their conversations during the rainy season. And when the rainy season was over, they went away, and his mother had been bitten by a snake, I believe. And as a result, he was by himself, a very young boy, 5, 6, 7 years old. And so he took off and just went wandering across, and he covered lots of land and saw all kinds of different things. And he eventually achieved the darshan, or the presence of the Supreme One. So these are kinds of suffering that even come to those personalities who have no sinful reactions in their past, at least not compared to us. So we have then reactions that we have to take. So now we have come into contact with persons, one in particular, Srila Prabhupada, who has given us knowledge. He's given us his compassion, his love. He's given us his example to live by. He's given us books to read, to learn the philosophy that would help to end our suffering. What is Srimad Bhagavatam called? What is it? Bhagavad Purana. It is also known as the source of our freedom. What is it? How is it stated? Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Our very means of conquest. The Srimad Bhagavatam is our very means of conquest. So we have all of these benedictions that come with our suffering. Whatever suffering we've had to do in the past, we're still taking some reactions from that. But what is the benefit of that suffering that we're having to go through? What is the benefit of the suffering that anyone has to go through? They begin to ask questions. If it gets bad enough, they begin to say, "Oh, my dear Lord." That's when they start to pray, my child is suffering like anything. I have a grandkid, little granddaughter, who's now 15. But when she was about 8 years old, then she had to go into the hospital, and we thought we were going to lose her. Had some kind of an eruption in the back of her brain that caused her to start bleeding. Her brain started to, to have blood. And so many difficult, and as parents and grandparents, we suffered like anything watching her have to go through all that. Another was Mother Gopi Gita's young son, Braja Kishore. He had a brain tumor in his head, young kid at that time, and but the doctors went in and took the tumor out, fixed it. Took him a while to start being able to read again. So we see that in our society that we're in, even in our Krishna conscious society, we see that we're going to suffer, and our children are also going to have to suffer. And so we understand that, and we appreciate that in a way now that we never could before, and that is because we have the knowledge of the reason that the suffering is taking place. This is not because of the kids at school being sick. I mean, that could have been like the postman delivering the letter. The postman's not the cause of whatever's in the letter, right? He's simply the one that brings it. So all these persons that have appeared to be the reason for our suffering, some verbally, some take physical action against us, some just get sick and they have to be around us. So we have to suffer in that way. But ultimately, we are the cause of our own suffering. So we take it as punitive. This going back to the title of our discussion today. Is it punitive or is it beneficial? And we say It can be both. Because with the punishment comes the desire to get rid of the suffering. If this material world were set up so that it would be nothing but pleasurable, why would we want to go back to the place that we came from? But Krishna wants us to come back, doesn't he? And so he comes as Lord Chaitanya, and he brings along his younger brother or older brother with him, depending on which incarnation. And Lord Nityananda then becomes our guru, isn't he? Isn't he Chaitya Guru in the heart? That is Lord Nityananda's position, one of his positions that he takes. So we gain knowledge of the spiritual world by being in the association of those who have that knowledge. And then we begin to develop some compassion for other people, such as the compassion that was shown to us. And that is one of the most beneficial attributes of Srila Prabhupada for us, that he had compassion on us, and to the extent that he would leave a fairly comfortable existence, even though to us it seems very austere that he was living in Vrindavan. He left there, came on the boat, had never been out of India before, as we understand it, came to the West, and he said, Lord, what am I going to do with all of these people? How am I going to deliver them? And yet, even though he desired to get back on that boat and go back to India, as any of us would certainly do, after we'd had so many problems such as he faced initially, still he accepted those difficulties, and not as we understand, not as reactions, but as just something that Krishna wanted him to experience, so that other people could see him experiencing those difficulties, just for the purpose of saving us. Hare Krishna. Any comments or questions that have come up in your mind?
I have a few, if nobody else has any. I think what you ended on for me is something that I reflect about often, and the fact that somehow or another we met somebody by some good fortune that brought us to Krishna consciousness, and that happened at some point. And I feel like sometimes or I can speak for myself, that I guess I was kind of born into Krishna consciousness, but there was still devotees along the way that encouraged me and helped me to choose to join again in this life. And I feel like we all have devotees like that in our life. But I personally, I forget about that sometimes, and I don't remember how somebody kind of picked me up when I was down or heading in the wrong direction. And how can we kind of try to remember that? And my hope is that by remembering that then we're inspired and encouraged to want to do that for others, because somebody did that for us. They put their hand out and they lifted us up out of the mud. And how can we just maintain that gratitude and appreciation for what others have done for us, and nurture that, so that hopefully it turns into this strong desire to then do that for others?
Every day we can offer a prayer to our spiritual master, for the benefit of those who have helped us. Our mothers, our fathers, our uncles and aunts here in the community, our grandfather and our great-grandfather. I think our grandfather, for many of you, would be like the first disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and then great-grandfather would be Srila Prabhupada. For us, Prabhupada is our grandfather. For those my age, he is our grandfather. And so every day, offer a prayer of thanks. Just like when you set out on a journey, we have the practice in my household of of saying Namaste Narasimhaya when we start out on a trip. And then when we come back home safe, then it's time to say it again. Namaste Narasimhaya. But this time we're not asking for anything. We're saying, thank you very much, dear Lord. And so, Nrsingarupa, I think that you can certainly look back on your parents as the ones that have given you some of the best and most frequent guidance that you've had. And they've had to suffer watching you make bad decisions, just as my parents had to suffer watching me make bad decisions. And somebody around you is going to suffer when they see you suffering. So we have to say thank you very much for helping us get through that time period and get to the place that I am now. We might not be temple president, but we might be just a member of the community, and that's a glorious thing, because there's so many opportunities to talk with other people, and they don't necessarily have to be people coming from the outside who are completely ignorant. You could talk with your God brothers and God sisters and give them some encouragement, and because all of them at one time or another are going to be going through some really tough times, and they're going to be suffering. And so we're not going to go up to them and say, "Oh, Prabhu, you're suffering because of all the sinful activities you committed." No, we don't say like that to a person who is in the throes of difficulty, but rather we go and we commiserate with that person, and we offer friendship. We offer to whatever physical, financial help that we can to that person, and everybody eventually at one time or another is going to need some help like that. I'm going to become discouraged sometime, and Shakti Gopal is going to have to come and talk to me and say, "Rupanuga, don't worry too much, buddy. It's going to pass." But you may be laughing, thinking, why should a young fellow like him be able to do anything for an old head like me? But it is possible. Sometimes all that we need is to have a saintly person walk into the room, and we benefit. Or come up to us and just put your arm around his shoulders and tell you, "Hey man, it's really nice to see you." Sometimes that's all it takes. Being appreciative is one of the big deals. Dristadumna Das.
Hare Krishna, Panuga Prabhu. Thank you for the nice class. I was thinking for Nityananda Trayodashi, I was wondering how do we connect more with Lord Nityananda? How do we get Lord Nityananda's mercy? How do we understand Lord Nityananda's position?
How do we perceive Lord Nityananda's mercy receive? Well, you have to perceive before you can receive, right? So how do we get that? Sometimes doing what you were doing on the altar, worshiping the Lord like that. That is certainly a way to get benedictions from Lord Nityananda. Another way is to understand that your whole life you've been benedicted by Lord Nityananda's mercy through your wonderful parents. And so, show somebody some real appreciation on a day like today. And if someone is having some difficulties, make an attempt to help to assuage that difficulty, to mollify it, to make it better. Because it doesn't take so much looking around the community, as you know, to find someone who is in difficulty, someone, especially in Krishna house, somebody who might be thinking about, I just can't do this. I can't do this. I'm just going to leave. I'm going to go back to my parents' house, or I'm going to go back to my friends, and because I was having a good time there. I'm not getting very much sense gratification here, even though the food is absolutely fantastic, even though the association that I have is indescribably good compared to the kinds of association that I had in the past, where people were always looking to put themselves above everybody else. You know, having to deal with people like that, that will go on throughout your life if you live long enough. You're going to find people who simply want to be glorified and simply want the best seat at the table, so to speak. And there are others who are having to suffer through periods like that. I've been through them myself, and it's really helpful to have somebody around who is supportive. So those of us that have been married for a long time, we appreciate our spouses for staying with us through those difficult times when we were just very discouraged, and maybe we lost a job, maybe we lost a friend. In 2 jobs that I was in, 2 times, I lost my immediate supervisor. One gave up his body with a heart attack on the golf course. And another one had a stroke at work one day and became disabled so that he couldn't be there. And so because of losing each of those 2 persons, then I got into a situation that I had to figure out, what am I going to do now? Anyhow, Lord Nityananda, then we can offer prayers directly to Lord Nityananda, or we can offer them, if we don't feel that we have a direct connection to him, we can offer prayers to our spiritual master, and that's always good. And every day we should be offering a prayer of thanks to our spiritual master for showing us the love and compassion, for showing us the concern for our spiritual welfare that our spiritual master has done.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, that was an amazing class. In the examples of Mahabharata, and also we have seen Narada, they have gone through many, even though they were saintly persons, Pancha Pandavas, Draupadi, Bhishma and Narada, they were all saint.
He's my interpreter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Even though they were great saintly persons, they were going through great sufferings. Compared to them, what are we? We are so materially degraded. We have to, for sure, go through all the sufferings. And we have to go through all the sufferings. So when we are going through these sufferings, we somehow get bewildered through Maya. That makes us deviated from the path of bhakti. It kind of causes bewilderment. So how to deal with this? That was my question. You got my question, Prabhuji? The suffering causes bewilderment.
I don't know. But I have heard it said that anytime we're going through a bad period in life, and we feel like we're being attacked by Krishna's material energy, and we are indeed. In other words, she actually, even though it appears as though she's causing us to suffer, she's actually reminding us what our desires are. And so even though we might think, oh, I'm past using this drug, or I'm past dealing with this kind of woman or man in my life, Maya Devi can put a suggestion into our minds that it really wasn't that bad, and if I go back to that, I'm going to find some relief, some respite for the suffering that I feel that I'm going through now. If I go back to what I was doing before, I will get some relief what I'm doing. But then we have Srila Prabhupada. He's taught us that this is not going to solve your problem. So we have to lean heavily on those persons who are our spiritual mentors. And we lean heavily on the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita. So instead of abandoning them and going back to what we were doing before, we have to re-immerse ourselves in reading. And I find that that's really good. And I keep thinking, the source, let's see, what is it? The Srimad Bhagavatam is the, what was it, what we were talking about? Yeah, this is our means of conquest. And if we really believe that, then that means, how do we worship the Srimad Bhagavatam? Pick it up and begin going through the pages, reading. And you might find, as others have found, that the first page that you turn to has the answer to the problem that you're having right now, the problem that you're trying to find the solution to. So we have to just go back to our philosophy. And something I find that helps to do that is to realize that others who are suffering as I'm suffering right now, they don't have the philosophy to go back to. What do they do? How can they survive? How can they get by without this philosophy? And I asked my wife, what do they do? If our kids are having some problem, I say, what do they do? They've got enough philosophy under their belts now. They grew up in this community, grew up in Krishna consciousness. Eventually, they're going to have to turn to a source other than themselves. The doctors are not going to be able to help. Their husbands or their wives are not going to be able to help. I'm at the end of my rope, dear Lord. I don't know what to do. That's the kind of question that Krishna likes to hear. I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to do now? So instead of depending on anything in the material world to solve our problems, we just have to do what Prabhupada taught us to do, and that is read, chant. If you can't come to the temple, do what I do a lot of times, and that is turn on the television, go to Roku, and bring up YouTube, and then I get a perfect picture of whoever's giving class. And I do this every day, by the way, that I'm not here in the temple room. I listen to the class, even if the person is a young person or younger than hasn't gotten that much experience in Krishna consciousness. They're going to be able to bring up some point that is going to register with me. And so that's my means of solace then. In other words, I get respite from the problems that I'm dealing with now. I get some peace of mind just by falling back on the philosophy, because that's all we got. Everything else that we've ever tried before we came to Krishna consciousness is not going to give us any peace. And we're looking for peace. Peace means happiness. Without peace, there can be no happiness. So you have to have peace of mind to be able to get that happiness that you're looking for. And there's a way to do it without having to rely on anything that's a part of this material world. Vishnu.
If you give me permission, I'd like
Prabhu.
to share three things in support
Please.
to what you have mentioned. The first thing is when you first mentioned the verse, I went into Vedabase and I searched it up and I looked at the translation, and the translation made me feel like, great, I'm excited to hear everything that is my fault. And but as you kept speaking on the whole verse, I was amazed about, like, you know, how you made it that you showed the importance of the suffering rather than making it seem like, you know, everything is the living entity's fault. So I really appreciate that. And I want to also share like a verse that came into my mind, one of my favorite verses. And I really like that this verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam that I'm just about to say the translation to is also like just connected to it. And in a very simplified way.
Yeah,
so
by all
it says, these people are not the cause of my happiness and distress. Neither are the demigods, my own body, the planets, my past work or time. Rather, it is the mind alone that causes happiness and distress and perpetuates the rotation of material life.
And where's that coming from?
From Bhagavatam, the Avantika Brahmana story, Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 23rd chapter, 42nd verse.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you for that.
That's all I wanted to share. Thank you, bro.
Also, when Parikshit Maharaj came upon, and this is an example I've used regularly, came upon the bull and the cow that were being beaten. The bull was being beaten by this heinous person dressed like a Kshatriya, but he was actually like Kali, the personification of the age of Kali. And he asked the bull, Parikshit asked the bull, who is this that has beaten you and causing you to suffer like this? Even though this person is standing right over there probably with a stick in his hand, he's asking the bull. And the bull was Dharma personified or animalized. I don't know, how do you say? In other words, I presume this was Yamaraj. But anyhow, Dharma, he says, it's really hard to say who is the cause of my suffering. He could have said, him, it's him. He could have said that, you know, but he didn't. And we read elsewhere in the Gita, the Bhagavatam, that if you name the person who is causing you trouble, you stand to suffer the same fate as that person suffers for causing you the trouble. Have you ever read that before? It's in there. I can't remember where, but I've read it recently. So I think it might be in that same chapter where Parikshit Maharaj is talking to the bull. So yes, indeed, what you said at first was correct. We are the source of our trouble. But we get a lot of help from Maya Devi, getting into more and more trouble. We can't blame it on her. It's just like, you know, when you're flipping through, when you're doing, looking through YouTube or Facebook or something like that, and you keep looking at certain things, and one particular picture attracts you, or one particular reel that you're looking at attracts you, and you think, oh, let me watch that. And so so the analog has it set up so that you're going to get more of that kind of thing fed to you, because that's what it recognizes that you want to see. And so Maya Devi, I think, is like that as well. She's not going to show us stuff except that it's her job to try to test us to see if we really do want Krishna instead of Krishna's material energy.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you. And there's like, I remember Nityananda Prabhu, like, I haven't seen any person even the Bhagavatam so humble like even falling at the feet of others and asking them to say Hare Krishna. So,
Hold on one moment.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You understand? Oh, Nityananda. Yeah.
So if you would say anything more about that, so that more inspiring.
You're asking him to share.
Well, I guess the most outstanding incident that is in my mind, and that is when Jagai and Madai were causing havoc in their village. You know, they were dacoits and they were just nasty guys. But we actually know that they came from the spiritual world. They were the gatekeepers of the spiritual world, Vaikuntha. And so, but still, they have to be treated as though they're demoniac persons, because that was the agreement, that they would take their birth in, 3 times in the material world? Well, this was the 4th time when they came in as Jagai and Madai, wasn't it? It's 4th time. And this was the time that they were still acting pretty nasty as they had when they were Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, and Shishapal and who else? Yeah, Dantavakra. Yeah, so here they are again, and they're causing all kinds of disturbance to all kinds of people. So Lord Nityananda then begs them to please just chant the holy names, and then of course they hit him on the head with a pot or something and cause blood to flow. Even though he doesn't have a material body, still blood was flowing from his head. And so when Lord Chaitanya came and found out about it, then of course he started to kill them with his Sudarshan chakra. But then Lord Nityananda begs him, says, no, please don't do that. This is not the incarnation for you to be killing people, but rather get rid of their problems that they are having right now. And so he delivered them, and so we understand that they became great devotees of Lord Chaitanya. So he was very instrumental in taking these worst of people, and I don't think anybody in here was as bad as Jagai and Madai. But Lord Nityananda then gave them his mercy and asked Lord Chaitanya to be merciful to them. And so that's the one that stays with me more than anything else. Sometimes we might wonder, why is it that, that other innocent people in the society have to suffer because of these two personalities, or because of Hiranyakashipu? Why are innocent people having to suffer because of this personality? Why would Krishna arrange that? Sure, he wanted to come and fight with these two personalities. He gave them the choice then to take their birth as demoniac personalities. But why would he cause or let other people have to suffer just to allow them, Jagai and Madai, to do their heinous activities? Why would he do that? And what do you think the answer to that is? They were not innocent people. Nobody who takes his birth in this material world is an innocent person except the pure devotee of the Lord. We all have something that we have to suffer from. Even we sometimes will see our spiritual masters have to suffer. But we don't take it that they're having to suffer from something that they've done in the past. They're having to suffer because of what? People like me. They're taking on some of the reactions that I should have to take on. And hopefully that I will see that my spiritual master is having to suffer because of something that I have done, and I will correct my own behavior.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to appreciate the class and how many practical instructions that you gave, that things that we can do every day, such as the prayers, just appreciation of devotees. Actually, Vishnu and I, we were talking just about how to avoid complacency with devotees, because after a while, growing up in the movement, maybe there can be a tendency, or just being a devotee for a while, to start treating devotees maybe a little bit casually. And it's actually something I've been wondering about the past few days. Whoever I talk to, have a conversation with, kind of trying to ask what's their take on how to not fall into that. And through your class today, you just answered all the questions that I had, and you also added that you even listen to devotees that are younger than you are, and you still look to try and find the philosophy, take shelter of the philosophy wherever we can, because that's all we have. So I just wanted to appreciate that you went there. Thank you for sharing your realization.
I'm pretty good at repeating stuff I've heard. Yeah, everything that I've said today I've heard from my spiritual master and from other devotees in this community. Of course, I've done my reading too and my chanting, but still I have to give the credit to other sources. And we can do that, and that keeps us from becoming proud, thinking that I have helped this person become a devotee. I remember the way it used to be said, I made him a devotee. Actually, I've heard my spiritual master say that. It's okay for me to hear him say that, but it is not okay for me to say that. But no, I think our purpose is not to make somebody else a devotee, but rather to help somebody else become a devotee. Do whatever we can to, whether it's saying, here, put this in your mouth, a piece of burfi or something, or whether it's explaining some philosophy, or just, again, commiserating whenever they are having some real problem in their life, and helping them understand that, you're going to get through it. So this is the kind of stuff. You've had it ever since you were born, Shakshi. And so it's deep, it's lodged deep inside you, and you will begin to realize it whenever you begin speaking to someone else about Krishna consciousness. You may amaze yourself at what you're able to say to a person for a particular situation that just fit what that person needed. And you shouldn't take all the credit for it. You say, Namaste, Namaste, or Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna. You should offer thanks to the person that you heard it from. If you can't think of anybody else, maybe your grandmother. This lady has helped so many people in this community just by her example that she has set, so steady in devotional life, and so unswerving from the path of righteousness. That's an old Christian term. All right, I think we should stop. Is that okay with everybody? Thank you so much for taking a goodly portion of your Monday morning. Is this Monday?
Yes.
Thank you for giving a portion to come and sit with us and discuss philosophy. It's made it really nice for me to have you here. I thank you so much for coming. So we will offer our respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees, who fulfill the desires of everyone, and who are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha anantakoti vaishnavrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Kalachandji Dham ki jai. Gaura Premanand.
Rupa Nuga Prabhu ki jai. Ananta Kori Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Rupa Nuga Prabhu, for the very wonderful class. I was just in closing, I wanted to, something you brought up and Drishta brought up. We hear about we can't approach Radha and Krishna without the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, and that we can't get Lord Chaitanya's mercy without the mercy of Lord Nityananda, and that the way to get Lord Nityananda's mercy, and Gokulananda Prabhu, you can correct me if I get this wrong, and the way to get Lord Nityananda's mercy is by sharing Krishna with others. Well, I think they say with the most fallen. That's what Lord Nityananda's mood was. So myself, so share Krishna consciousness with me and you can get Lord Nityananda's mercy. But I was really appreciating Rupanuga Prabhu's point that it's not that we just need to go out and find somebody else, that we have devotees here in our community we can share Krishna consciousness with, we can help them on their journey when they struggle. So thank you so much for the very nice class, Rupanuga Prabhu. And the remainder of our schedule for today is devotees can do japa or kirtan in the temple room until 10 o'clock. And at 10 o'clock, we will have Abhishek along with kirtan. At 10:30, the TKG Academy Lower Elementary will do a presentation in the temple room. And then at 11 o'clock, we'll have a class by Her Grace Aruda Mataji. She's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada and the mother of Gopal Hari and Radhika Raman Prabhus. So she'll be giving class at 11, and then at noon we'll have Artik and Kirtan, and then at 1 o'clock we'll have a sumptuous prasadam feast. And anybody who has extra time and energy and would like to get some more of Lord Nityananda's mercy, we have an opportunity to help with cleanup after prasadam. So hoping to get a nice group together so it can be fun and enjoyable service together. Thank you all so much. Shri Nityananda Rama ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bo.